What is going on, everybody? We are back with a review of the very first episode of The Terror. Season 1, Episode 1, The Terror. The episode is called Go for Broke. This is directed by Edward Berger, written by David Knjanjic. I don't, I don't know how many, or how to say that. I do apologize, David. Kajganic. Is it maybe Kajganic? He's an American screenwriter and producer. Um, Anyways, so the air date for this was March 25th, 2018, and originally, being the first episode, had 3.34 million viewers upon airing. I'm specifically mentioned that because there is a steep drop off by almost 2 million from episode 1 to 2. And I'm guessing it is because of how much of a slow burn this turns out to be. Most people that make it through this season tend to say it gets better as it goes. And the first episode is pretty slow. Like, pretty slow. But a lot of really interesting things do happen in it. It just depends on what's going to catch your attention. So, basically, in the very beginning of this episode, we get an explorer in the middle of nowhere talking to an Indian guy. And the Indian guy mentions that he talked to these British people that were sailing through, and that they said that if anyone comes to find them, to tell them that to don't follow them, that they've all died. And then we get 3 years before, or 3 months before, or however long before. And basically, we're getting these two boats that are cruising through the Arctic. And they're trying to find their way through Canada to get back to England. And as they're exploring the world and exploring the Arctic, you kind of get to meet the cast. You get the main general guy and his 2 to 3 people in command. And one of his guys, so you get, let me see. This was John Franklin, Sir John Franklin's Arctic expedition. And Captain Francis Crozier. Then there's the two boats are the Erebus and the HMS Terror, which I'm guessing the Terror is kind of where the name of this came from. And they're going through, they're attempting their first ever crossing of the Northwest Passage in the Arctic archipelago. I'm reading this, by the way, off of Wikipedia, just to make sure that I don't. A lot of my explanations for what happens in this episode is going to be this guy, that guy, those guys. So I'm hoping you know who I'm talking about, because I don't know their names. But you've got the main captain dude and his 2 people that are like his second and third in command. His second command is completely running the Erebus, and he's on the Terror with his third in command. I'm guessing it's his third in command. And as they're going, he has meetings with the 2 of them. We get a lot of flashback moments of them in England at a play, where the play is them, people portraying themselves as them, the captain and his people, finding new land and things of that nature, and then being honored for it. We're not even sure that this has actually happened, by the way. This is just, it seems to be like a flashback, but it could also be like a dream that somebody's having. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying it is not a flashback, but I'm not sure. During all of this, one of their people ends up getting really sick. Like, really, really sick. Doctor tells them it's consumption. They're worried about it being scurvy. And as the kid gets really sick, um, a piece of ice gets lodged in the propeller of the Erebus. Huge chunk of ice gets lodged into the propeller of the Erebus, and it stops them completely. Uh, so they send a guy down to hold on before we get there. Overnight, the guy that is really sick is laying in there, and he ends up dying from consumption, which is tuberculosis, by the way, TB. He ends up dying from tuberculosis. And I'm just calling it consumption because that's what they were calling it in the show. But as they sit there, as he's dying, he sees the image of what appears to be, and I say appears to be because, again, I'm not real sure. It's an Asian guy of either Chinese or Japanese descent. I could not tell because of the dark screen. But he is of Asian descent. And 1 minute he's standing there, and then the next minute he's got this weird mask on that's like making his face look all crazy and scrunchy. Or not scrunchy, but like elongated and almost Picasso-like. And the guy that's dying is the only one in the room that can see him. And he's saying, and he's screaming out, he's telling us to run, he's telling us to run, he's telling us to run. And the doc's like holding his hand as he's doing this, and then he just dies. He goes and tells the captain, the second command captain, the captain of the Terror itself. I think it's the Terror or the Erebus, the captain of the Erebus. And after he tells him, he basically says, "Okay, well, in the morning we need to check for scurvy because General's going to ask for that, or Admiral. The Admiral's going to ask for that." So next morning, they send one guy down to break up the ice. And by the way, something that I did miss out on is when the chunk of ice stopped the ship. It was a sudden stop, and it caused everyone to like lose their footing. And one dude fell off the mast, the crow's nest, hit the mast, and then hit the side of the boat and fell in the water. They tried to save him, but nobody would let anyone else jump in after him, and he didn't grab onto the rope, so he dies. Right. I brought that up because this comes back. So they send a guy down in the water to break up the ice with a spear. And then while this is going on, the guy is checking the dude for scurvy. So they do break up the ice. And as it gets broken up, the dead guy that had fallen is like floating towards the dude breaking up the ice. So he's like yanking on the cord to hurry up and be pulled up. He gets pulled up out of the water. And then we find out that the kid that died did not die from scurvy, so it was tuberculosis. So, as a matter of fact, there were no signs of scurvy at all. So, they bury him off on in some rocks, ice, something or another. They bury him off. And the captain has a meeting with his ship, or has a meeting with his people, his private people, and they're the guy that's like second in command is trying to convince the admiral, we need to just go back and go home. Like, if we continue further, we're gonna get trapped. The ice gets thicker, and it's more of a landmass than it is ice. And the admiral is like, no, God will see us through. That's this is what we're out here to do. And the dude's like, no, we're gonna screw ourselves. Like, we need to bounce. And the admiral is like, look, glad to finally see some color in your face, but it's not gonna happen. We're doing what we're supposed to do. However, the Erebus is no longer able to move at full speed. It can only go at half speed because of what happened to the propeller. So the Terror has to take point. And the Terror is not a ice-breaking ship. So it's like, setting themselves up for failure here. So they're going through, they're breaking ice as they go, and eventually the episode basically ends with them being frozen in and admitting, like, okay, looks like we're spending the winter here. And he's like, this is what we signed up for. The Admiral says, and I want everybody to have a positive demeanor. That's what you're here for. And if anybody asks, tell them that they all signed up for an adventure of a lifetime. And that's what they're getting. So that is where the episode ended. I know there's probably some itsy bitsy details that I left out, but I feel like I got pretty much the gist of it. As far as what I'm thinking so far, one of my favorite things to do is try and see if I could figure out what is going on. The only problem is the trailer kind of reveals that there is a monster somewhere out here. And we've already basically been told everyone dies. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play out, exactly how it happens. I hope the second season doesn't start off doing the same thing. I'm not a fan of that setup. I've never been a fan of giving us the ending before it starts and then just finding out how we got there. A lot of, I think, what we're going to see are these guys turning on each other, because there seems to be a lot of people that just aren't being smart about things. They're just, like the Admiral is a prime example. He's absolutely not listening to his people. And I feel like there's a history of that. And boats sinking because of it. But yeah, it's an interesting show so far. I can absolutely understand why they end up losing 2 million viewers after the first episode, and it's a steady decline. Like, I'm sitting here looking at US viewers in millions. And it's like, it starts off with 3.34, drops down to 1.39, 1.11, goes up a little bit the next week. Then it drops down to under a million. 0.91, 92, 97, 86, 78, 79. And then season 2, it just starts even lower. 0.58, 0.45, 0.42, 0.38, 0.36, 0.38. It drops down to the 0.2s by the end of that season. And eventually ends with a 0.36. So it looks like most of the scenes on the ice are created using CGI. George Takei's in season 2. We are getting a season 3 as well, by the way. So season 2 isn't. It's the show's not over yet. I don't know who any of the people are that are supposed to be in it, though. We'll see. But yeah, so far, one episode in, there's not a whole lot to actually really talk about. It's interesting. And again, we'll get through. I'll be recording one more episode of this tonight. I got to create the thumbnails for the first couple for the episode, and then the review, and then afterwards, after I get some water, we'll be watching and reviewing the second episode. So, again, I'm intrigued. I'm not saying I'm in love with it. I'm not saying I hate it. I'm intrigued. I'm curious to see where it goes. And like I said, it's got some interesting story beats. And I'm definitely interested to see how the people end up turning on each other. If they even turn on each other. Shit could hit the fan super quick, and there'd be no reason to turn on each other. So, we shall see. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, love you. We'll see you next time.